Settle down now and get comfy. You're about to sleep with a celebrity. Let your weary mind be free. And someone kind of famous who you can't see. It's time for sleeping with celebrities.
Hello, sleepyheads, and welcome to Sleeping with Celebrities. I'm John Moe. I'm glad you're here. On this audio program, we invite our friends to step out of the limelight and step into the nightlight. For one bedtime, I don't need them to bring their A game, but rather their Z game. It is a podcast where you can sleep, you can simply relax, you can take a break from stress and intensity. Just ahead, we'll be sleeping with Kathy Valentine. She's going to talk to us about all the cats she has owned. But before that, I invite you to settle in and get comfortable while I tell you about another program on the Maximum Fun Network. Sleepyheads, do you wish to travel this summer but do not have the time? Would you like to learn all about state mottos and history without the obligation of summer school? Or maybe you just love urban legends and Latin? Well, one podcast has all those disparate elements together and celebrates the states that people call home. E Pluribus Motto celebrates a different state or commonwealth or district or territory each week with hosts Janet Varney and John Hodgman. That's right, you get both of them. They celebrate the mottos and all the absurdity of the local life where those mottos are found. Janet and John go across the country to states like Oregon, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, and so many more. So join them to take in the sights and sounds every other week on E Pluribus Motto at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get podcasts. And now our guest. Kathy Valentine is an author, musician, and songwriter. She played with the up-and-coming rock band The Go-Go's for the first time at the Los Angeles venue The Whiskey A Go-Go on New Year's Eve, 1980. She became a full-time member of the band immediately afterwards, playing the bass guitar. The Go-Go's, of course, went on to much fame and well-deserved success. Kathy wrote or co-wrote some of the band's biggest hits, including Vacation and Head Over Heels. The Go-Go's are, of course, in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Kathy has been part of several other bands, too, including World's Cutest Killers and the Bluebonnets. In 2020, she released an acclaimed best-selling memoir, All I Ever Wanted. Kathy Valentine, welcome.
Hi.
I like to start these conversations with a question or two about sleep. Are you someone who falls asleep easily, Kathy?
Well, not really. I generally put on something to listen to, and it's usually bedtime stories. And I've kind of trained myself now that I can't ever go to like a book reading of an author because I'll fall asleep at the book reading because it sounds like a bedtime story to me. So that's generally like music doesn't do it, sounds don't do it, but just like a nice voice reading a story. So that's what I pretty much do it every night.
And do you recall the best night of sleep you've ever had?
God, I had one just the other night. It was crazy. I'm a night owl, so it kind of can work against me because I push past that initial tired place, and then by about 3 a.m. I'm ready to go to sleep. But sometimes I push past, so I have trouble. But not that long ago, I went to sleep at 3 a.m. and I slept until 4 the next day. And it was really
Wow.
crazy because normally I wake up about 9. So I'll get, if I go to bed 2 or 3, I get, 6 or 7 hours. And so as
Mm-hmm.
a consequence, I do feel tired a lot and I would like better habits. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I would definitely like better habits. I don't do the things you're supposed to do. Like I will be on
Mm.
my phone, I'll be around the bad light, the bad light that you're not supposed to look at.
Right. The light
And
that tricks you into thinking it's daytime.
yes, so
Yeah.
yeah, I definitely have a lot of room for improvement to help my sleep patterns, but so far I've not gotten with the program.
Well, today we're going to talk about the cats you have owned. Do you know off the top of your head how many cats we're talking about so I can make sure to pace our conversation accordingly?
Well, there was two sections of Katniss, and one was when I was growing up with my mom, and we had a series of cats that I don't remember probably as well. I do remember some very distinctive ones, but then when I moved away, and then became in a band, I was a pet. I didn't have any pets until the age of 30. And since the age of 30, I've had cats the whole time, and I'm
Hmm.
66. So I'm going
Okay.
to say maybe about 15 I can remember.
About 15. All right. Well, let's start with telling the listeners, the sleepyheads, all about your cats. What is the first cat you remember? The first distinctive cat?
The first distinctive cat I remember was a Siamese, but he was unusual because he had white splotches. So he was a beautiful dark brown and tan cappuccino, normal Siamese, except for these white splotches. And when I named the cats had much better names than when my mom would name them. And people that are listening will agree with me, I'm sure. And I named this cat Organic. And
Organic.
yes, and this would have been in the 70s. So that kind of shows you a little bit like early 70s, probably about 1970 or 71. So that tells you a little bit about my environment, that I even had the word organic in my vocabulary.
Yeah. Why organic? What was organic
I
about the
think,
cat?
well, the cat was organic. It was an organic creature. It was not manufactured, and I liked the sound of it. And it seemed to, I feel like cats name themselves. And, I probably looked at him and it popped in my head, and that's how he got the name.
Hmm.
So, and it suited him. It's just suited him. So organic was. I mean, what amazes me about cats is that even as many as I've had, and I'm sure I haven't had near as many as like a cat lady, and they usually were only in ones, twos, maybe there was three at any one time. But they're all so distinctive in their personalities. It's like, as I remember them as clearly as if they were little people. And Organic was had a very really distinctive meow uh, that Siamese cats are kind of known for having distinctive meows.
Could you
Um,
imitate that meow right now?
Kind of like meow, meow, but not in that. You go a little further with that and you get that strange sound that cats make sometimes when you can't tell if they're happy or upset, but they go "Mm." My cat does it a lot now. It's like
Mm-hmm.
"Moo," for no reason. And I've moved into a new house and it's got 3 stories. I live in London now, and I will be upstairs in the bedroom and I can hear from like the ground floor. the cat that I'm not going to tell his name yet because we're not, I don't know if I'm going to go chronologically with the cats. Might skip around. Is that allowed to skip around? Cat skip?
That's allowed to skip around. Yeah. Yeah.
Cat skipping.
Yeah.
Anyway, I think that's about all I can remember about organic, but he's one of my earliest ones. But me and my mom's very favorite cat was so unusual. I'll never forget him. And his name was Simon. Simon, my mom had a boyfriend named Ronald, and Simon was like Ronald if he was a cat.
Oh.
And he was big, he had a giant head, and he wasn't a tabby, he wasn't an orange tabby. He was those strange, he was a blonde. Now, Ronald wasn't blonde, but Simon was blonde. Ronald had dark hair, but the essence of Ronald was in Simon. And Simon demanded respect, a lot of it because of his size. He was a big Tom. He had his balls, he had his giant head. He was always beat up from just going around and making sure all the other cats in the vicinity of where we lived near the University of Texas knew that he was the king of
Mm.
that area. And I think Simon, he was definitely Ronald in a cat
Mm.
form.
Did Ronald go around the university making sure everybody knew he was king of the humans?
No, but he went around the friend circle of my mom and her friends. Ronald was, as a child, I really noticed the effect that Ronald had on people, and it struck me. When he would walk into the room, people took notice. They had a very deferential attitude towards him. It was my first encounter, I think, with, I want to say charisma, but also just a kind of a power. People were very drawn to Ronald, and uh, he just had this innate power. And my mom was obsessed with him, just obsessed. And he was the main male figure in my life for about 12 years and
Mm.
wasn't real forthcoming with affection. But I remember if I could make Ronald laugh, it was the best feeling in the world. And if I made Ronald mad, it was a frightening feeling. Not that he was ever violent or mean, but he had those kind of looks that just a look would make you quake. And
Did Ronald
Simon,
and Simon like each other?
yes, I think Ronald saw his kinship in this cat. So Simon was very much like that, and I'll never forget it. And he was huge. And he wasn't huge because of fur. He was a short hair cat. He was almost lion colored and lion like, but a little more blonde than a lion.
Okay. So that's Simon.
That's Simon. The next cat I remember that we got, my mom, she went with a bunch of people to these labs at University of Texas where they got wind of this awful project that they were going to do some horrific experiment on a bunch of kittens. So my mom and her friends went and rescued the kittens. And,
Oh.
and we got one of them, and it was a little white and pink. Pink because everything that wasn't white fur was pink, except for
Mm.
his eyes, which were blue. But I promptly named this little white kitten Clorox. And Clorox was just adorable. And, we'd never had a white cat, and to have him from a kitten and to have his history, knowing that, he was, I'm not even going to say the experiment they were going to do because it'll just give
Mm.
people nightmares. And
Yeah,
that's
we
not
don't want
what we're
that.
here. We're not here for that.
Did you break him out in like a heist type of situation?
Honestly, I don't know the details,
Okay.
um, but I was really proud of my mom for doing that. And I don't think it's anything she initiated, but I think when she had the opportunity to assist, she took it. And she worked at the University of Texas. She worked in the anthropology department. So she had access to the information that was that led them to this rescue operation. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure somebody probably had keys to the facility where they were doing this stuff. So Clorox we kept for a very long time. All of our cats, I don't recall any of these cats meeting any kind of untimely ends. They had good,
Full
solid,
lives.
long lives, yes, with
Okay.
us.
All right.
Um, there was actually, I just remembered there was another kitten in that group, and he was tiny. He was teeny, tiny, tiny. And he got the worst name. I did name him. I can't blame my mom for this, but I was trying to think of the tiniest thing I could think of, and I came up with protozoa.
Oh,
And
that's a
that,
mouthful.
well, we shortened it to proto.
Okay.
So proto was, he was a little kind of fuzzball, very dappled, like gray with little orange bits, little tufts of orange and stuff. And I don't recall a lot about Proto. He didn't have as distinctive of a personality as a lot of the other cats that we've owned has. But I just remembered we ended up with two of the rescues.
Hmm. How many cats did you have as a kid before we jumped to the 30-year-old Kathy cats?
There's one more that I can remember.
All right.
There's one more, but I don't remember a lot about him. My mom named this one, and she named him Gray Malkin. And
Gray
my
Malkin.
mom, is there a literary figure, Grimalkin?
I
Grim,
don't.
I think there's a
Grimalkin.
literary allusion to that, Gray Malkin. I think there's something Grimalkin. I could
Well,
be
a
wrong.
grimalkin is an archaic term for a cat.
Oh, then that's what my mom did.
Yeah.
She named
All
him
right.
Gray Malkin because he was gray, and I guess
No.
he was. So there you have it. That is something that I didn't know.
Yeah,
And
the name Grimalkin and cats in general became associated with the devil and witchcraft. Women tried as witches were often accused of having a familiar, which was frequently a Grimalkin.
oh,
Yeah.
well, my mom used to say that once I was a teenager, she used to say if we had been around in the witch trials that she would have been burned at the stake.
Okay.
But anyway, so now we know why Gray Malkin was named Gray Malkin because he was
Yeah.
a gray Grimalkin.
Okay.
And she loved that cat. I wasn't as attached to that one. Most of them I had a very strong attachment to. I'm not sure. I remember them all so distinctly, and I remember the feeling I had, and I just remember feeling not very attached and maybe a little bit guilty. But
Hmm.
we can move on
All
to
right.
the later years of me being the
Yeah.
primary parent. And I was touring pretty much and working and just being a young adult in Los Angeles. And then about the age of 30, moved into a house and I decided to get a cat. And I ended up with two cats. The one was white and one was black. The white one was Coconut and the black one was Elvis. Now, there's quite a bit of interesting stuff about Coconut and Elvis.
Sleepyheads, please be aware of another podcast on the Maximum Fun Network, Tights and Fights. It's the perfect wrestling podcast, whether you're a lifelong fan who spent summers suplexing your siblings into the pool, or you just know that it's something that The Rock used to do. Everyone is welcome. Every week, Hosts Hal Lublin, Danielle Radford, and Lindsay Kelk break down the best of wrestling as only they can, with a lot of love and no toxic masculinity. Even though wrestling doesn't have the best reputation for, well, lots of things, they always try to make their show the place where women, LGBTQ friends, and people of color know that this art form is for them also. Shows happen every Saturday at MaximumFun.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
Now, there's quite a bit of interesting stuff about Coconut and Elvis. For one thing, the kitchen in the house that we lived in, it was in Studio City. It had that kind of floor that's black and white, those big square tiles.
Mm-hmm.
So it was black and white. And every time I went into the kitchen, Black Elvis was always centered on a white square, and white coconut, I can hardly even get my thoughts around this. White coconut was always centered on a black square.
Mm.
I always thought that it was incredibly, aesthetically pleasing for them to do this and to make it such a consistent attribute. Like they just knew they would show up better and maybe be fed quicker or get more attention or something. So that's one thing. They were really good cats, and I kept Elvis for a very, very long time. And I will venture to say that Elvis might be the top cat of all cats.
Really?
Yeah,
What made him so good?
he did things I've never seen another cat do ever. For one thing, Elvis and I would play hide and seek, and it was a legitimate, valid hide and seek game where I would hide like behind a door or something, and he would come looking for me, and I would kind of peek out and see him coming, and when I knew that he was coming close, I would jump out and scare him, and he would jump really high, and then he would run and hide somewhere, and I'd go look for him, and he would jump out from wherever he was hiding, and he would scare me, and we would do this game back and forth. Now, if that isn't enough, even better than that, in this house, when I would take the garbage out, the garbage cans were by this bed of ivy, and Elvis had a cat door. So when he saw me, if he happened to see me gathering the garbage from the kitchen and taking it, I would go out the front door. Elvis would go out his cat door, and he would circle around the back of the house, and he would go to the bed of ivy, and he would wait until I got there to the trash cans. And as soon as I walked over to the trash cans, he would jump out of the ivy and surprise me. I mean, it was not a real surprise because I knew he had done it.
Right.
It was just this, I've just never had, I don't know if you call it intelligence, but it definitely showed a thinking process. Like he knew when we were doing this game, and he knew when it was trash time, what he put a plan into action, and he executed that plan. And it gave me so much joy. I can't even begin to describe how joyful it was to play hide and seek with Elvis.
Did Coconut ever get jealous because Coconut wasn't as clever?
No, had Coconut just had his own thing going on, and both cats lasted for quite a while. Coconut did end up with an illness, and it was my first time having to deal with, you know,
Yeah.
dealing with a pet that had on my own as a young adult, and it's hard. That part of being a pet owner is hard. It's kind of comes with the territory, the price of love, as they say.
Hmm.
But Elvis ended up moving with me to Texas when I left Los Angeles in 2006. And Elvis came to Austin, and I had my little girl. By then, oh, I'd also gotten another cat, I'd gotten a coconut replacement. Now, this was the one disaster cat I've had.
Oh,
And this cat's name was Dart.
Dart.
And Dart was Dart because all Dart did was dart around. Dart was terrified. And there was this woman that worked for the manager of the Go-Go's. And I remember she asked me if I would take this cat, and it didn't have a home, and he was a teenager. And I did. The very first thing Dart did, I lived in a house. I'd moved from the first house in Studio City, and I'd moved to a house on Farmdale. And the first thing Dart did was get stuck in a tree. And I remember I tried the fire department trick, and it didn't work.
Uh-huh. What trick is that? Calling the fire department?
Calling the fire department to
Oh,
rescue a
yeah.
kitten out of a tree.
Yeah, they
And
don't do that.
no, I'm sure they must have gotten the same call before, but luckily I found a neighbor and was able to get Dart out of the tree. And it it went on and on. Dart's neuroses were just wouldn't stop. They would not
Hmm.
ever stop. Elvis went on to live a full, wonderful life and knew my daughter until she was about 7, and I'd gotten him at 30. So Elvis had a good long life and was very memorable. Before, however, I think before Dart, actually, there was another interesting cat story. Um, and this cat, this is kind of going to veer off of the cat theme a little bit, but it's centered around this cat. So I went to the shelter in Van Nuys to get a cat, and it was very strange. This was actually the strangest thing that ever happened to me, I think. And I was pulling into, and my mom was with me, and I pulled into the Humane Society in Van Nuys, and there was this man pushing a bicycle across the driveway, and he was going really slow. And I was sitting there in my car, annoyed because cars behind me couldn't go. And he like looked me in the eye. He made eye contact and had this very defiant look, like, I'm gonna take as long as I want to push my bicycle across this drive. So I just remembered it because it was like the eye contact. And then I go, sorry, I don't know how to make these notifications quiet.
Hmm.
So they're dinging you to death.
No,
So
I'm not hearing it.
I went on, I adopted this cat. It was a fully grown cat. Uh, this was actually this was my first attempt at a cat. This was pre-Elvis and pre-Coconut. This was
Hmm.
a failure. So I got this cat, and I then went to the pet store and bought all the accoutrement of pet ownership, like bowls and cat litter and this and that. And then I put that in, and then I took the cat home, and the cat disappeared in terror somewhere. And I put its things out, and hours had gone by, hours and hours. And I had driven miles and miles because the Humane Society was miles from the pet shop that I went to. So hours later, my doorbell rings, and I wasn't expecting anyone. So I looked through the peephole, and you're not going to believe who it was. It was the guy with the bicycle. And
Oh.
he was ringing my doorbell. And I said, yes. And he said, oh, hi. I'm just wondering if you want to buy any bicycle parts. And I said, no, I don't. Please leave. And left. Now, it sounds really mundane and not, but it's weird. I mean, I have to say, it's the weirdest thing that's ever happened because the coincidence factor is is pretty bizarre. And the him being able to follow me on these errands for miles and miles and miles is an impossibility. And
Yeah.
I didn't imagine it. I did not imagine it. It really happened. It's stuck with me like when people tell their weird like alien stories or their spontaneous combustion stories or
Hmm.
whatever weird stories people have. My story is about the guy on the bicycle. And
I thought he was going to have the cat with him when he rang the doorbell.
no, but I just think it's a worthwhile story just
Oh,
because it does
definitely.
make you wonder how the heck, of all the houses in Studio City, how he picked my house to ring the doorbell. And
Try to sell bike parts.
I'll just, yeah, and I'll never forget his face. I'll never forget because of that look he gave me. I think if I believed in Satan, I might think he was Satan, you know,
Hmm. Hmm.
because wouldn't it be more likely that Satan is just some guy that looks at you defiantly when he's pushing his bike across the drive and then showing up at your house? That's more likely than whatever the other people's version. I don't know.
I could
I
see
don't know.
Satan being a bike guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did the cat ever show up?
Okay, here's back to the cat. The
Okay.
cat, much like Dart, who was named Dart because of darting around, this cat was faster than Dart. This cat just was like a gray blur. I mean, I forgot what he looked like. He was just a blur, like racing about in terror. And I really never saw him after adopting him, and I named him Howard Hughes because
Hmm.
he was a recluse or whatever. And I don't know what happened to him. I really
Okay.
don't.
No.
Don't know what
Uh,
happened to Howard. It was not lack of care or love. It was just one of those things that was very bizarre.
wasn't meant to be, I guess.
And maybe the cat was tied into, maybe the cat's bizarre behavior was tied into Bicycle Man.
Well, I would think the cat sort of established the location and then went off to report to Satan, the bicycle part salesperson, and then that's how he was able to find your house.
I mean, this was pre uh, tracking devices because it would
Yeah.
have been like 1990 is when it would have
Hmm.
been. But
Hmm.
otherwise, I would have thought anyway. And I'm kind of grateful that that's the weirdest thing that's ever happened to me because it's not scary, but it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
It's eerie.
I'm glad I had a weird thing happen, and I'm glad it was not worse than that.
Who are your current cats? Who's living with you in London?
I brought Gingerman and Rocky from Texas to live in London,
Okay.
and they've got nice little English accents now.
Hmm.
No, they don't. They they aren't super thrilled with England because in Texas there was just so much more to kill. I mean, I had a big backyard and I don't live I don't live in a manor house with grounds and I don't have a stately home. So they don't have that. And even if I did have that, England is just like sadly lacking in things for cats to kill, unlike
Yeah.
Texas, where my cats were really happy hunters and brought lots of presents home to me. But aside from the lack of victims, they're adjusting. As long as I'm here, they're okay. they're both rescues. In fact, all of my cats are always rescue cats. Ginger Man is as his name might imply, is an orange tabby. And I took my daughter to get him from a shelter in Austin, Texas, where we were living. And we were going to get a kitten. So we were kind of playing with the different kittens in the enclosure. And all of a sudden, we heard this really loud purr behind us. And it was like, I can't even do it. It was so loud. And we had to turn around to see where this extraordinary purr was coming from. And he was not a kitten. He was probably like a teenager, an older teenager. And, but he earned his way into his house, into our house, and into our hearts with this purr. And he's an extraordinary cat, Ginger Man. And when I had him, I also had a cat named Dodge. And Dodge was rescued not by me, but by some friends. Dodge was dodging traffic on a freeway. So
Oh
no,
boy.
they didn't name him Dodge. They told me that's how they found him. So I named him Dodge. And it occurs to me that I had a Dodge and a Dart, and there is a car that's called
The
a Dodge
Dodge Dart.
Dart. So
Yeah.
that was just entirely a coincidence, um, a nice little coincidence. Dodge was one of those very special breeds known as a Kittler.
Part
And
cat, part Hitler.
well, there's if you look up Kittler on the internet, you will see Kittlers, and they are cats that have little Hitler mustaches.
Oh yeah, cats that look like Hitler. There's a whole
Yes,
website about them.
yes. So Dodge was a Kittler, and very unique cat, very very beautiful, and despite her Kittler, whatever you call it, my brain lost the
Uh,
word.
uh, Pattern.
Yes, that'll work. Um, so Dodge and Gingerman were the cats. Then Dodge went away to what do they call it? The Rainbow Bridge. I don't use
Yes.
the term, but that's what other people get comfort with. So that's where Dodge went. And I was buying Gingerman food at this, and I buy my cats very good food that they can stick their noses up and ignore. But
Hmm.
I was petting this cat every day. And one day I came and it was gone. And I said, "Oh, that kitty was adopted." And they said, "Yes." And then the next day it was back. And I said, "Why is he," or not the next day, but the next time I went. And I said, "Why is he back?" And they said, "We don't know. They brought him back." And then the woman said, "It's so sad. That cat's been in a cage for a year." And I was just like, "Oh, give him to me." So I
Yeah,
brought
bring
him
them over.
home. I took him, it took months to name this cat until we came up with Rocky. And Rocky and Ginger Man just from the get-go hated each other. I think
Oh,
one of the reasons they might have taken Rocky back was maybe he just is incapable of getting along with other cats. But I've now had Rocky and Ginger Man since about 2016. So we're
mm-hmm.
going on almost 10 years, and they don't hate each other any less. Maybe they do. Maybe they hate each other somewhat less, but Ginger Man's the alpha, and they get in fights, and Rocky does he walks a wide berth around Ginger Man
Mm,
and is very skittish. But they're my cats now, and they're the ones that my daughter grew up with a lot after Elvis and Dart were gone.
yeah.
And they're really good cats. And I brought them over. There's a very special, it's going to sound super bougie, but I'm going to promise you that it's not because when I was trying to ship them over, I checked with the cargo. It was like $5,000, and they were going to be in a crate for 36 hours. They were going to drive them to Dallas, 4 hours early for the flight, 12-hour flight, anyway, I just thought, no, I'm not doing that, not with these two cats. So, and I started thinking there's got to be other options. And because that's $5,000 without even paying for my ticket there.
Yeah.
So I found for less than my ticket and their cargo two cat fare, a airline that takes people and their pets overseas, and it is amazing because you land and somebody gets on the plane. It's a private jet, but it's all people and their pets. It's dogs and owners. The
Hmm.
dogs can be on leashes, but the cats have to be in carriers. And that's how they got to England. And it's a really good thing that has started up because of how many people have had bad experiences with their pets in cargo. And I'm hoping that the airlines will at some point realize that there's quite a market for this, and one flight a month could be devoted to letting animals come on. They should just do that because, there's a huge market for it. Anyway,
Right. Right. And who wouldn't want to fly that plane? If you're a pilot, that's a sweet gig.
yeah, it took a lot, it took me months of stress and worry to figure out how to get them to England. And if I ever leave England, I'll take them back the same exact way.
That's the way to
Um,
go.
yeah.
Who would you say among your bandmates in the Go-Go's is the most feline? And I think I have my answer in mind, but I want to hear what your answer is because you're more of an expert.
Feline, I think me. Oh, I
Really?
can't choose myself, can
You can
I?
choose yourself. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're the most cat-like. All right. I was going to say Jane.
Oh, I think Jane's more like a dog.
Oh, okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah, she's got that kind of, well, but dogs don't, you can't generalize, but certain breeds have different personality traits. I would
Yeah.
say Jane would be like, I don't know my dog breeds that well. I did have a dog too. There was a
Hmm.
dog in the mix as well, and he knew that I was not an experienced dog owner, and he was a very cat-like dog.
Oh, interesting. I wonder if
Yeah,
that was just his adaptation to being
yeah,
in
I think
a cat
so.
family.
He was good. He knew that the more cat-like he was, the better.
Well, we're almost out of time, so speed round. What are the other cats that you
There's
recall
not that
owning?
many more. There was just Sylvie and Mazzy, so that's
Sylvie
all.
and Mazzy. We
Yeah,
miss them all.
but I felt bad not to mention them.
Yeah, yeah. Kathy Valentine, thank you so much for sleeping with us. And I very much enjoyed hearing about all the cats you've owned, as well as the one cat like dog. And Kathy Valentine, good night.
Good night.
Well, sleepyheads, I hope you enjoyed hearing about all the cats Kathy Valentine ever had as much as I did. You know, something I like to do at the end of my day is make a mental catalog of things that I experienced or learned. So, if you don't mind, here's a list of takeaways from my conversation with Kathy Valentine right now, while it's fresh in my mind. 1. Siamese cats have a very distinct meow that sounds something like meow. 2. The University of Texas knew that Simon the cat was top dog of the campus, so to speak. 3. Grey Malkin was a historical name for cats, primarily those associated with witchcraft. 4. cats prefer Texas over England because there's not as much to kill in England. 5. There are entire online communities focused around Kittlers. Kittlers are cats with Hitler mustaches. And 6. To recap, Kathy's cats were and are, in no particular order, Organic, Simon, Clorox, Protozoa, Graymalkin, Coconut, Elvis, Dart, Howard Hughes, Gingerman, Rocky, Dodge, Sylvie, and Mazzy. Oh, okay, I'm going to turn in myself. Thank you for sleeping with me and Kathy Valentine. You can follow Sleeping with Celebrities on Blue Sky and TikTok with the handle @SleepWithCelebs. On Instagram, the handle is @SleepWCelebs. Our email is sleepwithcelebs@MaximumFun.org. Music provided by the Winterbowers. The show is produced and edited by Gabe Mara, senior produced by Laura Swisher. Swish. It is a production of Maximum Fun and Papuchik. I'm John Moe. Good night.
Maximum Fun,
a worker-owned network
of artist-owned shows.
Supported directly by you.